How's it going, Guardians? Shifty here, and today I'm back with another weekly vendor video. In these videos I like to go over all of the vendor armor and weapon rolls for the week. First, I like to start by going over any standout vendor armor rolls. Then I like to go over any good weapon rolls at Banshee. And finally, at the end of the video I show off footage of the remaining armor and vendor rolls for the week. In these videos I always like to mention that this armor is not going to be the greatest. So if you're a veteran player, don't expect to find any armor that you really want here. However, for newer players, these vendors can be a goldmine for you. They can provide you armor with good stats until you get some armor with even better stats down the line. With that said, before I get into it, if you end up enjoying the video, make sure to hit that like button, and if you're new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. Alright, I'm going to start by going over any standout armor for Warlocks. This week, Failsafe is selling chest armor with 22 intellect and 20 recovery. Now, as I mentioned before, this armor is probably not going to stand out much to veteran players, but this 22 intellect and 20 recovery chest armor should be a solid pickup for newer players. The reason being is recovery is tied to how fast you heal, and for Warlocks it's also tied to your rift cooldown. On top of the recovery here, you also have 22 intellect, and that will help you get your super back faster. I think this piece would be especially good for a PvP build where you may want to get your super back a little bit faster than your opponents. Next up, the Drifter is selling a pair of gauntlets with similar stats except not quite as good. This one has 20 intellect and 15 recovery. So the recovery is a little bit lower here, but it should still be a solid piece for new players. Again, the two highest stats here are recovery and intellect. A good rule of thumb for keeping armor pieces is to hang on to ones with at least 20 in one stat and 15 in another. Doing so will help it so you have a lot of options when it comes to making builds in the future. Alright, now let's move on to Titans. Shaxx is selling chest armor with 25 discipline and 17 recovery. Now, long-term players will notice a 54 total stat here and completely dismiss this piece. However, if you just started the game, this is a solid piece to hold you over until you start getting better armor. 25 discipline is tough to ignore. That gets you a quarter of the way to maxing out your discipline with just one armor piece. Discipline is tied to how fast you get your grenade cooldown, and grenades can be powerful tools in every aspect of the game. This piece also has 17 recovery. While that isn't tied to any Titan ability cooldowns, it does dictate how fast you heal. The faster you heal, the faster you can re-engage in both PvE and PvP. The next piece for Titans is a pair of gauntlets sold by Zavala. This has 26 strength and 17 recovery. Again, the recovery is good for healing, I've already gone over that, but strength is tied to your melee cooldown. Melee abilities are not usually the most popular abilities in the game. However, I believe that Titans have some of the best options when it does come to melee abilities. So if you want to do a melee focused build, I highly recommend picking this piece up because again, 26 strength will get you over a quarter of the way to having tier 10 strength. Moving on to Hunters. Failsafe is selling chest armor with 20 discipline and 15 recovery. The reason I want to talk about this piece is because it does fall under my rule of thumb that I mentioned earlier. It has 20 discipline and 15 recovery. If you just started the game, this is a great piece because it's going to improve your healing and your grenade cooldown. However, given it only has a 55 total stat, you're probably going to end up replacing it when you find something better later on. The next piece for Hunters is a little bit better. It's chest armor sold by Zavala, and it has 26 intellect, 18 recovery, and 6 mobility. Again, the 26 intellect is going to help you get your super back much faster. The 18 recovery is going to improve your healing ability. And it does have 6 mobility, and while that's not all that great, I did want to mention it because mobility is tied to the Hunter dodge cooldown. Anyway, that's all I have for any standout armor rolls. Now I want to talk about any decent Banshee weapons. In regards to Banshee weapons, I do want to mention that the rolls on these weapons will change again at 7 PM Central on Wednesday. So the rolls you see in this video won't be the same when it comes to that time. And with that said, if you want any of the rolls you see in this video, you need to stop by Banshee before 7 PM on Wednesday. Unfortunately, this week it only seems that there's one semi-decent weapon, and it's the Cold Denial being sold. The reason I'm saying this is because high impact frame pulse rifles are decent in the Crucible. There are definitely better options for this type of weapon like the Messenger, however Cold Denial does a decent job. This particular Cold Denial doesn't have the best perks of all time, but it does have some passable perks. You do have Ricochet rounds here, which is an overall solid perk. Then you have Feeding Frenzy, which is a decent reload oriented perk. Then you have Unrelenting, which will give you some health after you defeat multiple opponents. This perk does work in PvP, so if you do manage to get a multi-kill in the Crucible, you should heal just a little bit. That's really the only standout weapon right now. However, remember that the weapon rolls will change again at 7 PM Central on Wednesday. Feel free to stop by Banshee after that time to see if any of the rolls changed for the better. The weapons will stay the same, they will just have different weapon perks. Alright, that's all I have for any standout armor and weapon rolls for the week. Now I'm going to show you footage of the remaining vendor armor and weapon rolls. If you want to stick around to check those out, feel free to do so. Otherwise, I hope that you have a good day, and I'll catch you on the next one.